tell you when it's ready.
He's good.
I know exactly where this is.
You started?
This has started, yep.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
I wanted to welcome everybody to the December 8th, 2021 regular meeting of the Conservation Commission. We have a new Conservation Commission member, Abigail Glendale. Just wanted to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you may be voting on a few of the items that you were able to see ahead of time on tonight's meeting. So, but no pressure.
Okay.
So, we're good. We have enough members, so we're okay. And the other thing I just wanted to mention to the other counselors is that you have a letter in front of you that was relevant to our application, the State Wetlands Bureau applications, new business, Bureau Exeter Street. The applicants are not going to be here until later. I was going to try to bump it up to discuss it, but if you have a chance to look at that letter, we will discuss it during the application later on, where it is on the agenda. So our first item of business is approval of the November 10th, 2021 minutes. Anyone want to make a motion?
I just have a few edits. On page 3, where it says the motion failed by 1 to 5 vote, it said Vice Chairman Collins voted. And she actually wasn't here, so that's supposed to be Ms. Tanner.
That's good to know.
Then on page 6, just a little bit of like a grammar clarification. The 4th paragraph down where it says Ms. Blasco appreciated that. I think it just needs to stay, but stated or commented or something, that it still was an intensive project to a small island, just to be a little bit more clear about, instead of just, but it seemed intensive to a small island. And then the other one I had was just a small typo on page 9. The second sentence up from the bottom that starts with Mr. Britz confirmed he would send instead of SNED.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yep, I have a couple.
Okay.
On page 5, the second paragraph down, Mr. Jankowski noted the chemicals do stay internalized and go to the roots. And then it says it is part of an organic management plan. What it should say, it is allowed under the NOFA standards as part of an organic management plan.
Okay.
And then I have one more. There's somewhere. Page 9. About the 4th or 5th paragraph down that starts with Mr. Melanchuk. It says in the last sentence, they can have a NOFA list of landscapers with accreditation. It says, it should say there is a NOFA list of landscapers with accreditation.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it. On
Yep.
page 7, the last paragraph, last sentence, Mr. Simonis questioned if the shoulder could have liner plantings. I believe it was linear.
Okay. And anything else? I had a couple, one was on page 5, just a grammar problem, or a typo, first paragraph, 3rd line down at the end there. It says that is how it would be done for the smaller invasives, smaller invasive. And then also on page 2 and 3, Peter, you can help me with this, but it does say Chairman McMillan allowed for a public hearing. We don't do public hearings, right?
Comment, public comment.
Just change it to public comment. The same on page 3. Close the public hearing, public comment. And the same on page 5 at the bottom. There's 2 other places. And then the last one he calls a public comment. And then there's one other typo on page 9 at the bottom. Last paragraph, Chairman McMillan commented rather than comment. That was it. So,
I
yeah.
have one on page 5. The second to last sentence. It says, able to apply the chemical, allowed to apply the chemical.
Page 5, is it?
Page 5.
Oh, that's-
It says able, allowed. That's it.
Okay,
for
so
me.
I think we have a motion, but
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October 13th.
seconded?
I'll second.
Seconded. And all those in favor? And anybody opposed? And one abstention?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the conditional use permit application, Old Business, North Mill Pond Greenway, Area 1. Is there anybody here to speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick Crimmins is here, and I can speak to it too, but Patrick has amended the plan and according to what we talked about. I can pull it up, Patrick. So I can start it off. For Patrick, we talked about this at our, what meeting was it? At our October meeting. We postponed it and then had a work session in November to talk about it a little bit more and get some feedback from the commission that was to direct the scale of the boardwalk and the width of the path, as well as working to reduce other impacts on the site. And so Patrick redesigned the project to take those things into consideration, and I'm going to pull up the plan now. Find it. The sheet, Patrick. Oh, it's not showing up here. What does that say on the screen down there?
I think.
Oh, here he comes. Kevin, we're getting a little technical difficulty. Well, it might be because of
Looking for
that
an update,
update. Oh, it's not, did I not do something here?
No, you just have to.
Just hit share? Okay, my fault. Click the what?
Do you want it bigger? I don't know.
Make it bigger. Where's the full screen? Yeah, where's the full screen button?
You can scroll down to.
Oh, there it is. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to speak to this, Patrick, or do you want me to? Go ahead. You're in a better position than I am.
Sure. So, I mean, Peter mentioned it, and so it sounds like you folks had a good discussion last month, so we've made some adjustments to the plan. Based on that, they're highlighted in the cover letter, so my presentation's gonna be pretty brief. It is the 3 bullet items that I had put in that letter. You know, at the October meeting, you folks had expressed concern with the size of the boardwalk. So we have since reduced the scale of that, in fact, over half as much as what was previously shown. You'll recall it previously, I don't know if this is gonna work. It previously had kind of jutted out in this position around the tower. It was over 700 some odd square feet. So it's since been reduced to just this little vantage point out into the pond. So the reduced impact is over 375 square feet from the previous design. And again, that boardwalk design it contemplates a grading rather than a traditional wooden boardwalk, so you're getting that light through the pier itself, and we're also using those helical piles to minimize the disturbance for the support of it. Number two, you folks had expressed in October and discussed it further at last month's work session, was the concern with the width of the path. So, the 10-foot, it's a standard that we're trying to hold, particularly with a dual-sided multi-use path. But what we've done is we've taken away those 1-foot gravel shoulders, which were on either side. In fact, it's basically the same detail you can see when you, if you're familiar with driving in Pease down Grafton Drive. That's a porous asphalt path, so it's basically the same exact design as that. And then third point was the existing trees greater than 6-inch caliper will remain on site, and we agree to that. We haven't done a detailed tree survey yet. That's something we'll have to go out and do and mark. Certainly in the vicinity of the path, those trees would need to be removed. If there was anything related to some of the grading that impacted the health of the trees, those would need to be removed. But we know that you folks are trying to keep those larger Norway maples intact, the greater than 6-inch caliper, so we agree to that. So that really is the summary of the changes to the plan.
Yeah, and just to point that out the engineer hadn't surveyed every single tree out there.
Right.
So we're going to make every effort to protect as many as we can of those. But there
Yeah,
may be
well-
some grading that causes damage to them, so we don't want to leave them if they're going to be impacted.
There'll be like oversight from you on this, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Patrick, there was a question from a member of the public about the surface of that walkway. It's metal. They had a question of whether or not it was slippery or not. Because there's no rail on it,
So the grading,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
No,
think that it would be where it's a porous.
The way they design it, I think they punch up the bottom, so there's a little relief, and the
Yep.
edges of those catch your shoe.
Oh, I
So
see.
there is some traction. It's not just a slippery metal
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions, commissioners? I had a couple of questions. One was on C-101. It says you're going to be removing the no digging and the no trespassing signs. I know that there's, on North Mill Pond, there's a lot of issues with digging. So I didn't know if that was going to be replaced somewhere else.
We're happy to have you stipulate, work with the city staff on the appropriate signage to ensure that that doesn't occur.
And the no trespassing, is that just, are we being unfriendly if we?
We can't keep a no trespassing sign out there if it's a city park. That was out there to stop the digging that was happening when it was owned by Granite State Minerals.
Okay.
So,
So just maybe the no digging?
but we can incorporate that into the signage.
Okay.
Yep.
My other question was, and this also came up with a comment that we received, a comment letter, but was the concern about, a little bit about geese in the area, because I know that there's another restoration project that is having a problem with geese,
Okay?
and that the large area of the red fescue might be something that the geese are going to be attracted to, and if there's a way to kind of mitigate that, either, to reference the letter that we got for comments, there was a lot of good suggestions of isolating out areas within that red fescue to have more focused seating areas,
Okay.
rather than like a lawnish kind of area.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're certainly open to that. Again, Mike DeRosa, who's the environmental scientist, would be more apt to answer that question, but we're happy to have a stipulation that we look into that such that we seed it appropriately to try and minimize the geese.
Yeah, and to limit the open area where geese might be attracted to.
Sure.
with maybe have, sort of more of a natural seed mix or something.
Okay.
Where you can. I don't know if that,
Well, we're going to work with DES. We got funds to do this Living Shoreline
congratulations.
project.
Yeah.
And so they really are going to be focused on how we do that because they've seen that geese impact other sites. So we'll certainly be working on that as part of it. We don't want to lose the salt marsh vegetation to the geese, so. Yeah, I know they've had to do it over on the Cuts Cove site.
Okay. Yes, Andrew.
Just more of a point of clarity. So is this chain link fence running the entirety of that tide line, and what does that look like? Or I may be getting my illustrations mixed up, but I'm just,
No, it's just a silt sock. It's an erosion control. There's no fence. Are you talking about the thick line with the circles?
yeah,
Yeah,
That-
it's 2 rows of silt salt.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? I know are there any of the public that was here to speak to that at all? Or on Zoom?
Oh, we have a Zoom. Thank you for asking. Nancy Johnson raised hand. Let's see. How do I do that? Okay, Nancy, can you hear us? Nancy Johnson?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to thank the Conservation Commission and Peter and Patrick. This is, in my opinion, a much improved plan, and I think it will come out very nicely when it is implemented. The path is much better not having the gravel on the sides. The viewing platform, it's smaller and relocated. I think that is super. My only suggestion would be that maybe some of the red fescue could be replaced with a conservation mix, which has wildflowers in it. And in places, things like our fall aster, which is a beautiful plant and flowers well into the fall. It's one of the last plants for the pollinators and is easily mowed down when the mowing is done. So those are my comments, and I thank you very much for these changes.
Thank you. There's no
That's
other
right.
comments? Sorry?
Take it down.
She's still
I
on?
think that's it.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody want to make a motion? Yes, sorry, Jeff.
I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit application for the North Mill Pond Greenway.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Were there some conditions just raised now,
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean,
stipulations? I'm going
just-
to add those.
discussion.
Incorporating no digging into the signage was one you could add. Well, that was Nancy Johnson's, but you had talked
Similar.
about the geese. So reduce the red fescue by adding some more conservation seed mix planting in that planting area?
Yeah,
Okay.
and maybe a focalized seating instead of wide open.
Localized seating?
Yeah, localized would be
Oh,
better.
localized seating.
Like a bench or something, or a picnic table,
Reduce seating, or reduce seating to one area, or smaller area.
smaller areas.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
I was just going to say, it's great. You also moved the boardwalk, it looks like, over, so, because it was out on the point. And I think that's a really great addition for allowing some of the wildlife to come into that point. So it's really nice, and still people will be able to see. So thank you.
Sure.
So we want to, motion to approve, vote? All those in favor? All those opposed? And one abstention?
I'm abstaining, yeah. Although,
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, I appreciate your time on this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. Next item on the agenda is 960 Sagamore Ave. Anybody here to speak to that? I'm sorry, it's 30 Gosling Road, I apologize. 300 Gosling Road.
300.
I can't see with these glasses, so. 300 Gosling
I'm all
Road.
excited they're gonna be.
Sorry, confuse you.
Before we start, does anyone want a hard copy of, I brought some copies of the plan set, if anyone would like hard copies.
They should have hard copies. I can bring it up on the screen as well.
Sure.
If you want me to open a certain page, just let me know. I just have to open it. There.
Sure.
Gosling Road. Do you have a specific plan you want me to go to, or?
On figure 2, which is the permitting plan set, just in case anyone has questions as we go through it. Bring it up just to the front page.
Two. Map sheets.
Which one are we doing next?
They're further up.
200 Gosling. Don't, okay, thank you.
If everyone has paper copies, we can just go with that.
They have the paper copies,
Yeah.
yeah. I can go to this map sheet, or I don't, is figure
Yeah,
two
'cause
further
it
down?
doesn't say-
Oh, hang on. You don't see what I'm looking at. That's part of the problem. Oh, yeah. All right, so,
That works. Yep.
is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for having us this afternoon. My name is Lindsay White. I work for GZA Geoenvironmental. I'm here this afternoon with both Kurt Nelson and Elise Ward, both with Eversource Energy. We are here for an upcoming utility pole replacement project in the city of Portsmouth. Eversource is proposing to replace existing poles along the E194, U181, and the 3135 transmission lines. These 3 lines do run parallel to each other in the same corridor where the work is proposed. Eversource is proposing to replace a total of 8 utility poles, and this includes 1 off of Gosling Road, 5 off of Borthwick Ave, and 2 off of Greenland Road. And these poles are being replaced because during routine line inspections, it was determined that these poles are significantly damaged and will need to be replaced to maintain the safety and reliability of the line. The 1 off Gosling and the 5 off of Borthwick Ave, these poles are all currently wooden poles and have sustained damage through both woodpecker damage and also pole splitting. And the 2 existing poles off Greenland Road are currently steel and are experiencing significant corrosion. And we do have photos of those 2 poles if you're interested in seeing those. And so those are the poles that are needing the most, that have the most damage currently, will need to be replaced. The timeline for this work is proposed to start this coming February and be finished up by May, before the peak of the growing season. Consistent with similar Eversource projects that have come before the commission and the city before, timber matting will be placed in wetlands and in wetland buffers to minimize and prevent rutting compaction in wetlands. And this is also a best management practice recognized by the Department of Environmental Services. And so on the plans where you see the yellow hatching, that's where we have proposed timber matting, and that's for access within wetlands, as well as work pad placement around the poles in order to stage equipment during construction. If you want to go to, so this is the 1 pole off of Gosling Road right here, and on the next page we have the 5 off of Borthwick Ave. Those ones are placed in pretty close proximity to each other. And then the final 2 on the next, let's skip 1 more page. And we have the 2 off of Greenland Road. And so once work is complete, timber matting would be removed from the wetlands, and the wetlands would be stabilized with a seedless mulch to allow for stabilization. Eversource and GZA, we have coordinated with the Natural Heritage Bureau for rare species reports, and there are some rare plants in the vicinity of the right-of-way. However, with the timing of the project, they were okay with us using timber matting as a best management practice through these wetland areas. And we're also in favor of not putting a specific seed mix down, in fear that the seed mix that would be used could outcompete some of the natural seed bed vegetation that's in the wetlands. And so at this point, we're proposing to stabilize with a seedless mulch. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Any
Yes.
questions from the commissioners?
Yes.
Andrew?
Will machinery or tools be left on site when you're not there, like during off-work hours?
They cannot be left in wetlands, so they would not be left on the matting.
Okay.
Any others?
So you don't foresee any permanent impact, it's all temporary impact, is
Yep.
that correct?
It'd be the temporary for the work pad and access.
There'll be some vegetation that'll be impacted permanently where you're putting the poles?
Yes, so the poles do get offset slightly from the original pole location, so there are footprints where the poles are going in.
I had a question about your timeline in the proposal. It says March to early summer, and you mentioned February to May.
Yes, so it has been more concentrated in the February to May timeframe.
And you're doing it earlier, because that was a huge question I had, because you also mentioned in the proposal about moving the amphibians and other critters that might be impacted by you coming and going in the roadway and things like that. It seemed like, can you just do it earlier? I mean,
Yeah.
you're still going to be there at a critical time, but
Yes, and what happens is Eversource has an environmental monitor go out and monitor on the timber matting for any species, turtles or snakes that might be basking in the sun and taking advantage of the nice platform, and make sure that they're moved off of those ahead of any equipment rolling through.
so ahead of any equipment rolling through, but it'll be at a critical time during spring that most of the amphibians are moving around a lot. How do you take that into consideration? Do you know, or do they move them once and?
No, I mean, if each time that there's equipment coming through, they'd be
Okay.
looking ahead to make sure to move any species that are there.
Okay. Where do they relocate them to?
Just off the mat into the wetland system that's there.
Okay.
So how many proposed access points are there? There are a few here. I'm just trying to get a sense of where those may be and how many there are.
I'm sorry, what was?
So it says, for example, photograph number 1, southeasterly view, proposed access in the 100-foot wetland buffer. And then photograph number 6, westerly view, proposed access in the 100-foot buffer. So are those all the same access points, or how many different access points are we discussing?
So we see the yellow line, that's the access road that would be going through. And so that's where we say upon the proposed access, they just point to different locations where we have the proposed access running through that area.
So it is contiguous.
Yes.
Got it.
We have 3 entrances off, 3 different roads, and access continues through those.
Got it. That helps.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion? Oh, you got a question?
Another question. In the area where your access road crosses Hodgkin Brook, what do you do? What's the construction around that?
Which page?
Sure, we want to that is.
On sheet 2 of 4. I believe you said the yellow,
This yellow line, I think
Oh,
they're
yeah.
over here.
The dash line.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
What are they doing down there?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is on the left where Hodgkin Brook is, it comes down there, is that yellow line is the access road?
Oh, so there's no work proposed at Hodgkin Brook. That's the right-of-way boundaries, that's the corridor.
All right, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Anybody else? Want to make a motion?
I've been here, motion to approve.
Second it?
I'll second that.
And discussion? I just want to mention that timeline again, since it's not in writing, the February to May.
Yeah, February to May.
I don't think it has to be a condition, but it's just,
That's the, of course, intended time frame. If there's emergencies or something that takes crews away for any reason, it does get altered a little bit. Just want to mention that. But that would be the target time frame.
thank you. Okay. All those in favor for vote? Opposed?
Abstaining.
And, okay, and one abstention. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 960 Sagamore Ave. Thank you. Thank you. You want to introduce yourself? And
Yes. Small little table here. My name is Corey Belden with Altus Engineering, and I'm here with Eric Cates, Tyler Ruger, Alex Cates from Sagamore Corner LLC, the owners of the property, and Robbie Woodburn from Woodburn and Company, the landscape architect. So, I guess we don't have the plans on.
I think he's working on it.
Okay. So this project is for the, for 960 Sagamore Avenue. This is the, everybody probably knows the site of the Golden Egg, former Golden Egg Restaurant. The proposal is for a 6-unit residential building on site. Did you say that this has a pointer on it?
Yeah, the little button.
A little button?
Yeah.
So,
Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. There's a little bigger. That's the site plan. Tell me what plan you want. Do you want a different one?
start with the demo plan, which should be C1, the first plan, and back.
There you go.
So this site, it's a little bit over, or just under 1 acre in size, and there's about 400 square feet of wetland. In the southeast corner of the project, there's a little triangle of the parcel that sticks out and actually captures a small piece of wetland to a larger complex to the south. So the 100-foot buffer line extends kind of following it here through the property. And currently in that 100-foot buffer, there's approximately 750 square feet of gravel parking area and above ground propane tank in that area. So if we can I get to the next one, or
Yeah.
do I need that?
Sure. Here you go. Good.
So, going all the way back to, when we were doing the zoning application, there's actually a piece of the corner of the proposed building was actually extending over into the buffer area, and the rear parking lot area that we had was configured differently and was extending also into the 100-foot buffer area. But You know, the owner of the property was very adamant that we wanted to keep all structures and all parking out of the 100-foot buffer, so we rearranged, we shifted the building, we realigned the parking and did a different configuration to keep everything out of the 100, the 100-foot buffer. We went through TAC. Actually, we had a TAC work session and then TAC hearing yesterday. Through the TAC process, we were proposing to underground the propane tank in approximately the same location, which was within the buffer, but we've moved that completely out of the buffer as well. So current plan right now, we're moving basically everything out of the buffer, reduction of over 750 square feet of parking, gravel, pavement area. And the only thing that we do have in the buffer is a very small 10-foot by 10-foot patio area that would be for the residents. This is a nice lawn, current lawn area that will be a good place for the residents to go. So we're putting in a little patio for a grill for the residents to be able to have some outdoor space. So again, through TAC process, we had this was not a porous patio area, but we've also changed that to be a porous patio. So really, the overall project, we're keeping everything out of the buffer, moving the propane tank, getting that out of the buffer as well, reduction of 750 square feet, and only putting in a 10 by 10 porous patio area in the buffer. I can go into a lot of the other details on the site, but there's over 8,000 square feet of reduction in impervious area because we're removing all of that parking that fronts Sagamore Avenue. That will all be removed and turned into grass area. So there's significant improvements of providing stormwater treatment to a site that does not have any. Really stormwater-wise, there's significant reductions in peak flows, treatment where none exists, and we think we're really trying to provide a betterment to the area with this project. I think I can one other thing. We're also going to be going to DES for a shoreland permit. So as shown on this plan, there's the wetland, but Sagamore Creek is across the road, across another property on the other side of Sagamore Bridge. We know where it is. So we're in the 250-foot buffer for Sagamore Creeks. So again, we're going to be submitting a shoreland permit for that, which again, significant reductions in impervious area within the 250-foot buffer, and again, providing treatment, reduction in flows to the current stormwater. There's one area, and it's hard to see. It's, oops. And if you can see where I'm pointing, right down here, this line right here, that is the 100-foot buffer to the shoreland buffer. And that area is completely within the city's roadway right-of-way. It does not extend onto the owner's property, but we're trying to confirm with both DES and with the city if we have to apply for a wetland permit for removal of approximately 235 square feet of pavement within the buffer, within the 100-foot shoreline buffer. So anyway, we just have to confirm that, but that's possible as well. So if you want, I could go through the criteria for the wetlands conditional use permit, or we can just open it up to questions.
I think we could open it up for questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Anybody have? Yes, Jeff.
Corey, I just have a question for clarification because the soil report, it's described as being on the corner of Sagamore and Wentworth, which I think is the parcel adjacent. Is that owned by the same
It was.
people?
It was. And the soil report was done for both this parcel and the parcel adjacent to it.
Okay.
So it was done for the entire site, and that's why it was called out that way.
Okay, but that parcel is no longer, it's separate from this project, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
This may be in here, but is there a total square footage of the proposed development?
The proposed.
Building development?
Yeah. Like this buildings, the building size, is that what you're looking for? Like
Yes,
the-
please.
Um,
You have 42,930 square feet of land area. What is the building development area?
I don't know if I have the exact building development area. Let me just,
Coverage, the building coverage is listed on that plan as 17.9%. But I don't see a footprint yet.
so, let's see, I have if you have the full plans on the first sheet of architectural plans, it has the gross floor areas. So the first floor of the building is 7,097 square feet.
Can you say which, we don't have that plan, I don't believe.
Yeah, right there on the bottom left.
Could be in your, that's not in your set?
I don't
Yeah.
have that plan, at least I don't believe.
Some more pages back in your plan set, no?
I think you have a very good plan, right? Plan set.
It's like the last pages.
Andrew, it was the second to last page of the package.
I don't have that page.
Yeah, yours is really thin.
Evidently, that
You
would
must
have
have
been
not
answered.
got the plan set. So I think in the drainage report, we also have, we talked a little bit about the numbers as far as the proposed impervious area. There's rough numbers, there's, in the back parking area, really, we have our building, and we have our rear parking area. There's a little bit of, there's very little sidewalk or on the project, there's some. The two driveways, the back porous area is about 1,800 square feet of porous pavement that we're using for treatment on the driveway area. So, but again, I don't have the exact.
That's fine, I was trying to
Total
get a,
disturbance area outside of the wetland.
yeah,
buffer.
these help a lot. I was trying to get a context of that.
You good? Jeff?
I know it's all laid out here, but could you just kind of help me visualize what this is gonna look like? Like if you're facing the building with the retaining wall and that building sitting there, compare, you know, like height-wise and is it gonna, you know,
Yeah, so let's see,
compared to the street, are we gonna be?
the lower right elevation is your street view. Looking at the grading plan, we have it's set back quite a good distance from the roadway, so we're about it's 36 feet to the bump out from the edge of the pavement of the road. So it's about 40 feet really to the face of the building. There's some bump outs for in the building. Just after the right-of-way, we're constructing a small retaining wall to sort of have that separation between the road. It's about midway between the building and the edge of pavement of the road. And starting at the building finished floor is at elevation 31. We're at 25 at the high end of the road, and the road is sloping down as you go from towards Sagamore Grove. So finished floor there'll be it'll be 40 feet back, but it'll be about, with the curb, it'll be 4.5 feet or so to the finished floor higher. So it'll slope up with a small retaining wall in that area. That gives you a good picture of what it would look like.
How high is that retaining wall gonna be?
Starting out at the south end, which is the right side of the elevation, it's only about 1 foot, and then it gets to be about 3 feet 3 to 4 feet as you get to the low end.
Sorry to interrupt, Corey. I have all of the conditional use plans, but I don't have the actual architectural plan, so you guys are missing this because I have all of them. So you guys probably want to look at that as well. And architectural set.
Thank you, that was helpful.
It's answered on that sheet as well.
Thank you.
Just enough for the regular
I
members
don't have
to.
that. Yeah.
This was another one?
Yeah, that's the only thing I had in my packet was that.
All in your copy.
Sorry, Corey.
I have a note to check with
Oh, yeah,
ISAC.
we don't have that.
And this is a two-story building, similar to the building. It will be a little bit higher because with the ground level parking, the first floor is a little bit elevated above ground, but it's still not significantly higher than the existing building.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a question just about whether or not there's any tree removal or vegetation removal. I think there was something in Mike's about invasives, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Within the site, we just have, we have some very minor tree removal, and if, Robbie, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but we're trying to really preserve as much as possible. There are some trees located. If we go to the site, back to the site plan. So we're really trying to preserve the trees in this area of the project. There were some trees, again, nothing of significant value in this area where the parking is going. But really, there's not a lot on the existing site that we're being removed. A lot of the site is actually parking. The existing site is pavement, gravel parking area, building. Again, with that, over 8,000 square feet of reduction, all that area is previously developed. So we're converting a lot of that to green area for the project.
Okay. So you won't be going down in removing anything in the buffer either?
No.
No. So is there an opportunity where you're putting maybe to add a little bit of vegetation along the edge? Because that buffer is pretty much tall trees and any opportunity to put that, like where the people are sitting area that you have or whatever? I know that was something that the city staff put in their memo.
Yeah, at the edge of the lawn area, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Transition doesn't have any plantings there.
So, oops, that out. So, I mean, currently what we're proposing in the, actually, if you want to, can you go to the landscape plan? There's a, yes. Oops, yeah, so that's it. So, yeah, so we're adding a significant, we're adding, and Robbie can probably talk to this a bit more than me, but we are adding some plantings around the front and side of the building, we're adding some trees in the back. We're trying to preserve the tree line here. And again, this small flat area that is in the back where we have that lawn area, that we're trying to keep a small piece that is accessible to the residents for a little patio and gathering area. So we weren't adding are not currently proposing any additional planting in this area. As you can see, it's quite a small area as it is. And, trying to
I think we've been talking about around the perimeter of that grass area.
around the perimeter of the back area.
Yeah, not right around the patio, but kind of along that tree line. They have lots of stormwater controls along the roadways, but there's nothing along the back. It looks like kind of a natural, there's some high spots that seem to kind of separate from the wetlands, but down by that patio area is a little bit of a low spot. So I think we're saying if it added some plantings in there, it would help kind of separate that area and just add an extra control between that and the wetlands.
So, my name is Robbie Woodburn. I'm the landscape architect. I thought I'd jump in for a second. The paved area there is only 10 by 10, so imagine a grill there and a couple people standing around the grill. That's what that is. And currently, it is a sort of grassy, lawny area, and the way the topography works, you're looking down a slot down into the woodland, which it's got some nice character if you're going to be standing out there cooking. We did not put anything along the edge at the moment, currently. Mostly because it's a nice place to look into the woods. So, I mean, we're certainly can add to that if you direct us to do so. But it's meant to be very simple and stay sort of in keeping the way it is, except for that paved area for the grill.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the applicants. You've got quite a bit of grass on this lot, in total, in plantings. Would you be willing to follow organic land management practices on this property? There's an outfit called Northeast Organic Farmers Association, NOFA, and they have a set of standards. It's like 68 pages. It's extraordinarily flexible, it really is.
I think we have some standard notes that we've put on and from previous
The
requests
preferred practices.
to do that as well. So I think
Great.
we'd be fine adding those to the plan. Yep.
Okay. Any others?
I have more of a commentary, but that's it.
For later? Yeah. Okay. I was wondering about lighting in that patio area, lighting in general. There might have been something in the plans, I apologize.
It was,
There's only one proposed street light pole for the project. We're keeping it. It's just to light that back parking area. The pole is actually right in the corner. It's staying out of the buffer. But there's one exterior pole for that area. There'll be building mounted lights to light the doorways and entrances, and we have one little bollard lamp on the walkway that leads down out of the building down towards the ADA parking stall. So there's one bollard light, one street light. So I believe it's a 14-foot light, so it's dark sky compliant and all that.
Okay. It follows the.
And there is a lighting plan. I think it's the next sheet, actually, if you did want to look at it. Oh, no, maybe the previous sheet. Right there.
Oh,
Yep.
there it is. That's right. I remember seeing one for somebody.
So the one street light, the one is right there.
Okay.
Or, sorry, right over here, at the corner of the parking. And then a bollard light on the walkway down to the ADA parking stall.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? We could do a vote? I mean, a motion? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the conditional use permit application for 960 Sagamore Avenue.
Any
With a few conditions. I think it's important to have a delineation or some sort of distinction on that 10 by 10 patio where it's highlighted that somebody is directly abutting sensitive land, sensitive wetland, sensitive conservation land, whatever you want to designate it as. It would be nice to show, please be respectful of the land around you, even though it extends beyond the exact property line, having some sort of sign, placard, illustration that says, please be mindful of what is around you, so that we're not contaminating that at any point. So however you'd like to word that. And then along that the existing stone wall and along the existing tree line there, or the vegetation line, maybe including some native plantings and native species that may make that more robust and more of a, again, a buffer that people can identify really easily, so that the runoff or any sort of change in terrain right behind that building does not affect the wetland buffer in the future. It can be whatever the suggested amount is, just a nice buffer at that. Is that clear as mud?
You say along the stone wall and behind the seating area, is that what you're saying?
Right, so on that,
Do you want this back?
no. Where it has the existing stone wall to remain, that extends pretty deeply into that 100-foot buffer. And so I feel as though having plantings and visual representation of sensitive land right there would be nice.
On the edge of the buffer?
Here?
Yeah, right on
I'm looking at the
Yeah.
CUP1. It's highlighted in orange and red.
You went past it, that one, Peter.
Okay, so along here
Correct,
and along here.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody, thank you. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion?
I would just sort of concur with what Andrew said, that I think if we can, whether it's part of the condo docs or signage or something, just make it very clear to future residents that they are sitting on the edge of a very important wetland and near the creek. That would be really important to make sure that they are mindful of that, and that it's part of the plan for taking care of this parcel in the future. I would say I do appreciate that, you considered the lighting and you actually have snow removal on your plan, which is nice. That's outside the wetland buffer, so I do appreciate the effort in trying to make sure you considered some of those pieces when you were designing this, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, I think that's great. We just want to make sure that future residents, wherever they're coming from, if they're from out of town and unfamiliar, that they know what they're sitting next to, and so that's how we want to steward our property in the future. That's all it.
Anybody else?
So, I don't know what we're talking about. Some plantings along here,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
around that way.
Sound
Yeah.
good?
Yep.
You guys have pretty much already said it, but I just really want to say it's really nice to look at a first plan where it's out of the buffer zone for the most part. So, thank you. I don't see many of them when I'm looking through the city CUP stuff. So, thank you. Anyway.
Thank you. Yep, definitely. It's a good application. We want to go to vote. All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm going to stay.
Abstain, okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Can you bring the egg back? I could actually walk to that restaurant.
Always gonna be known as the golden egg, the site of the golden egg.
Yeah,
That's what they should call it, the egg
Go,
apartments.
go in there,
Condominium.
Golden egg condos, I like that.
Our next applicant is 12 Ruth Street. Anybody here to speak to that? We want to make a motion to postpone? They're not on Zoom, right?
Oh, good question. We're not on Zoom. It's a really small application. It's a homeowner applied, and I don't know if they didn't get, I don't know.
Oh, it was a pad for
It's
a
very,
hit,
yeah.
a hit pump, and that's the one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's up to you guys. Typically, you don't hear it. It's just such a small one.
So typically, we don't hear it, okay.
Well, I guess it depends on the project.
Oh, this is it,
Usually,
yeah.
they're a lot bigger than this, so.
That one.
It's up to you guys what you want to do. If you want me to relay the comments and then make sure they're at the planning board, I can do that, but I'll leave it up to you. I'm sure they're known to come, but they might have either not heard or not got the.
Well, this is one that I looked through it and I said, well, this certainly should have NOFA standards applied to it. They should apply for organic land management practices for it. That's one thing I would have raised
In the
if this
yard.
came up, yeah.
Yep.
But the other part of it is environmentally, they're doing the right thing. They're going to a heat pump, so,
Right.
there's environmental benefit in this proposal. So that's,
Yeah, I noticed that as well. The heat source is a backup to the natural gas. They have an oil tank now they're removing, so it is a big improvement from an environmental standpoint, more globally. And the impacts are mostly temporary, but
Yeah. That's what it had, but.
they're trying to get it done so they can close.
So they close on the sale of the house? I did have a question about sort of BMPs for pre-construction, or, so.
If you want me to follow up, or you can make a motion and put a stipulation in, and that'll go to the planning board. So at this
Yeah.
point, it's advisory to the planning board, so everything you want to put in it, we could put NOFA and BMPs,
Yeah.
or it's up to you guys, how you want to handle
How
it.
does everybody want to proceed? You want to go ahead with a motion with some stipulations to
Yeah.
approve, or you want to
Yeah.
postpone? Okay. Anybody want to start with that motion then?
I'll try.
Okay.
Feel free to interrupt. I will recommend approval I will make a motion to recommend approval for the conditional use permit application for 12 Ruth Street with the stipulations that they follow NOFA standards in land management care, and I missed the second one.
BMPs, erosion control measures.
Yeah, provide
Yeah.
the BMPs for erosion
Standard,
control
standard erosion control measures.
to the planning board.
Yeah. For landlord, yeah.
And that one.
Sound good?
Two stipulations, right? NOFA
Yeah.
standards and BMPs. Okay.
Anybody want to second that? Thank you. And all those in favor? Opposed?
Abstaining.
Okay.
Okay, I'll relay it to them, make sure they're at the.
Can't break my
planning
streak now.
Okay. So our next item is the State Wetland Bureau application, new business 0 Exeter Street, Pease Aviation Partners. Ah, okay. Hi. Hi. So you're here to speak to that?
We are, yes.
Okay, so we have a letter, which I think you're aware of, from one of the abutters. I'm sort of leaving it up a little bit to the commission to figure out how to proceed, but since you are here, and you're aware of that letter, and they've asked us to postpone this, I don't know if you want to give us any information or anything like that at this point.
So I guess let me start. So my name is Kimberly Peace, and I am the environmental coordinator for Hoyle Tanner and Associates, and we are here to speak tonight on behalf of the applicant. I was made aware of the fact that there was a concern from someone about this project, I can say that this is a state wetland application to Department of Environmental Services, and we have followed the rules regarding the state's requirements of a abutter notification per the environmental wetland rules as their definition. An abutter is someone who holds title to the land, not a leasee. We have correctly notified all of the abutters to the parcel, which are, a majority of which are PDA, Peace Development Authority. That a abutter parcel, someone who holds standing as an abutter is not a leasee. So as far as we are concerned, all the abutters to this state wetland application were correctly notified.
Okay.
That's because no one in Pease actually owns land.
I'm sorry?
That's because almost no one in Pease actually owns land. They're all land leases.
Right,
Well, they did send out abutter notices in the application. There was,
Correct. Right.
to other leasees, or?
No, that to the title of the abutting parcel owners, which were Peace Development Authority, and if there were other, I believe there are a few others in the application that were that own the land, but a leasee does not own the land. Therefore, legally, according to DES's process, so we don't have to notify a leasee because they're not legally the abutter.
No.
PDA, if they own that land, is the abutter.
Yeah, I know, okay. So, thank you.
Was there public notification?
so in terms of the state wetland permits, the Conservation Commission is advisory to the state,
Yeah.
but the process they follow for abutter notification is a state, part of the state application process. It's different than our city wetland application process. So it's really up to the state to determine, that process.
Yeah.
And you guys can make a call either way, I guess, on it, but.
Well, I would like to say I'm pretty familiar with Pease and the ownership situation. I actually spent quite a few years worrying about it at one point in my life. And it is unique, you've got 99-year leases, even though they don't own the property. So it's different than most applications. And to be honest, I would feel most comfortable in providing an outlet for everybody in a fair manner that they did contact us and said they do have something to add, that I would ask that we postpone this until the very next meeting and take it up then, so that we do give the opportunity for the abutting tenants an opportunity to weigh in.
If anything, it allows them to sit in on the public aspect of it and speak to it as a public member rather than a butter, but all the while knowing who they may represent.
Okay. So,
We also have Michael Mates here from PDA. I don't know if he wants to speak to it or not, but he's
Okay.
listening in.
does he want
He
to,
did raise his hand, so.
he raised his hand? Do we want to give him an opportunity now to have him speak to it
Sure,
before we put a motion?
sure.
Sure. If that's- Mike?
Can you hear me, Peter?
Yep. We can hear you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Mates with the Peace Development Authority Engineering Department. And basically what Kimberly and Peter have told you is 100% correct. This is a state application. We go by the state rules and accordingly the state butter notification rules. The concerned entity that submitted the letter is just a leasee on the parcel adjacent to the subject application. They do not own the land. They have a building rent, I believe. They just wrote the building. But, it's really up to you guys whether or not you want to hear it or not. We'll go along either way.
Okay, thank you very much. I just was gonna, we're just not sure on getting it heard. We have to submit an extension?
In terms of the state process, we have to request a statutory delay to get the recommendation to the state. And we're not sure that the time frame will work. I think it's a 30-day delay. But my understanding, so if they submitted the application, I think it was on the 1st when I looked at the application form. So I don't know if the delay is from the date you sent it or the day they submitted it, but 30 days from now, from the 1st would be the end of December. It wouldn't get you into the January timeframe for your next Conservation Commission meeting. Unless it's a 45-day
I
delay.
think it might be a 45-day. I'm not positive, and I should have written it down.
Yeah.
Then we're safe. I guess if need be, like, if we're really freaking out, we could have another meeting.
Yeah, or we can ask the state to still consider the comments at that point.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Typically, they will, but
okay, let's do that. Okay, so does somebody want to put a motion on the table then?
I'm not entirely sure where we stand, so I'm gonna,
So we're okay with, we're going to hopefully be able to still submit comments to DES within a time frame, and we're going to go for that, and then you guys, it's really up to the commission to decide if we want to wait and do it, postpone it, or hear it
go
today.
forward. Yeah, either or.
I know there's been some discussion, so maybe there's a motion that it's kind of waiting. Yes, sorry.
I guess I would like to point out on behalf of the applicant that we are here to present the application tonight, and this was a legally noticed meeting to all members of the public. Because you've received a comment from someone who isn't technically part of an abutter process to the state wetland application, we would just respectfully like to point out that we followed the state wetland application procedures, and that this person is a member of the general public, but doesn't actually have legal standing to comment on the application as an abutter per se.
Okay.
The commission is welcome to hear the public's comments at any point in time, but this has been a legally, available and posted meeting. So,
Yes, but if we vote to postpone, you could present now, but if we vote to postpone, then you would be presenting again later.
well, sure.
So if that's kind of, I don't know how this will go, but is that something, do you want to present twice, or do you want to?
No, I was questioning the postponement, but if that's up to the commission to bring us back, then of course we'll be happy to come back and talk about it.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it open to a motion and commission and see what happens.
Sure. I'm ready to make a motion.
Yes.
I'd make a motion that we postpone action on the State Wetland Bureau application for 0 Exeter Street, 31 Exeter Street, and 12 Aviation Avenue until our very next Conservation Commission meeting,
Okay.
so that we allow full public input. I hear you on the abutter thing.
Second?
I'll second that.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
I don't disagree with what she said. I think they did it properly and legally accurate. I understand the concern, but at the same time, they did show up here with their materials in a timely manner. But if it is truly achievable to hear it next meeting, then that'd be great.
Okay, great.
I
Thank
kind
you.
of agree with that. I would want the public to have their opportunity to say something, but if they've legally done what they needed to and it's posted, and then, if people weren't,
I mean, if this letter is dated December 7th, so they must have known that it was going to be before us today. They also could have shown up today and said the same thing verbally.
Right.
They're not on Zoom, right?
Just double check, but I don't believe so. Nope, just one participant.
So for that matter, if it's dated December 7th, they knew about it, they could have come as well, and their letter is...
Maybe they're here. Someone's raising their hand.
Oh,
Maybe they
Okay,
couldn't
great.
come.
just making sure you're here. So I guess, is it part of the public forum that they can comment on it?
I don't know, the whole thing's rather unusual.
Yeah.
So I think if you guys want to have them state their case before you vote, but you
Yeah, might as well. It's letter showing up here, yeah.
Okay.
heard one side of it, so we can never postpone it.
Okay, so we have,
I don't know, I guess that,
great.
again, it's up to you guys, but
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to postpone, and we're discussing it, and I am inclined to let the applicant proceed. also, just for the reasons that you both have stated, and to listen to the applicant, to the abutter. But, so all those in favor of the motion that's on the table to postpone? Thank you. And those opposed? And one abstention?
I was busy, anyway, I missed what we were voting on, because this is a sort of an issue.
So the proposal was to postpone the
Yeah.
the application?
So it's just, okay, that was just the postpone, that's a
Yes.
word I missed. I would like to vote to postpone.
Okay. Oh, dear.
Great.
3-3.
So 3-3 is a tie.
And it was a
So the
vote to
motion
postpone.
fails. So the motion to postpone fails because it's not a majority. So if there's a motion, yeah.
Okay. So the motion fails. So
Now we hear them.
now we'll hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, okay. Is it the same as your application or different?
It just walks through the application. We can do it either way.
No, I can put it in.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, sure.
Don't want to do that. Want to do that. Don't want to do that. Okay. Oh.
There you go. Thank you. So this is just a quick overview. I just made a few slides for you to kind of review the application and discuss the purpose and need and what we're doing here today. So again, my name is Kimberly Peace. I work for Hoyle Tanner and Associates, and we're here on behalf of the applicant. I'm also here with Sean Toby, who is the project engineer, and Deb Kuhn, who is an additional environmental coordinator with myself. The proposed project is construction of a fuel farm and a fixed base operator or FBO facility at the Fort Smith International Airport. So next slide. This is the project location map. It is fully contained within the boundary of the Pease International Airport, and Pease Development Authority owns the underlying land. It is immediately adjacent to the paved areas within the airport, and it lies to the east and sort of northeast to some of the existing paved and developed areas within the airport. Next slide. The applicant is Pease Aviation Partners LLC, which has also been used as Millionaire. The property again is owned by PDA, and they will be leasing the property to Pease, to Millionaire. And it consists of installation of a new fuel farm, an FBO, which is a fixed base operator facility, which will have hangar space and office administration space. So FBOs is kind of a term that gets thrown around a lot, but in this case, it will be a building that will contain these operations. And then there'll be a slight shift of the existing airport's wildlife fence in order to shift it around where the areas of development. So next slide. So in the preparation of the application, we addressed environmental resources. Fish and Wildlife Service, as you may know, northern long-eared bat is identified in this area of New Hampshire. We will have some minor tree clearing. It will be consistent with the Endangered Species Act 4D rule, which means we'll have no tree clearing in the months of June and July. And that's part of the review for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, but we addressed that as well. There were no species identified during the Natural Heritage Bureau review. We don't know if we have invasive species out there. We didn't do an inventory yet, but if they are encountered, they will be dealt with using the state's best management practices. Next slide. Cultural resources. There are no cultural resources that were identified on the property. We will meet the water control, quality erosion control standards. We'll be using typical BMPs for the project. We will be applying for this state DES as well as the Army Corps general permit. An alteration of terrain permit has also been submitted to DES. Next slide. These are just some photos that are showing what this site looks like if you haven't been out there taking a look at it from Google Earth. We have two main wetland systems. There is a wetland that is facing east that's part of a large system, and then there is another site that's off to the southwest. Next slide. Again, these are two more photos. So this is facing west down Exeter Street near where the proposed access entrance is going to be. And then there's another shot of the wetlands that's a little bit of a grass wetlands facing the southwest, which has the paved airport just on the edge of that photo. So next slide. So the wetland impacts are very small for this project. There are 38 square feet of temporary impact, 2265 square feet of permanent impact. The total impacts are 2303, which is 0.05 acre. These unavoidable impacts are the result of the access road from Exeter Street. That access road was pushed as far north possible in order to avoid and minimize impacts as much as possible. There's also going to be a small replacement of an existing drainage outlet that will have some temporary impacts. And then we are, as I said, shifting the wildlife fence. So those will be post-driven poles, but we do account for the square footage of just those. I think it's 2 or 3 poles where we'll shift the fence. So next slide. This is the impact plan. I know that you have plans in front of you to look at in better detail than what's here, but we do show that this here. I don't know if you want to ask any questions at this point. I believe that might be the last slide. So you want to leave that up if you want. And I'm here to just answer any questions about the project.
Any questions? And then there's more presentation.
Nope, we're all done. So that's it.
Okay. Questions from the commissioners?
Can you just,
If it's easier to see, the impacts are on plan C8A in your plan set. I don't know if that's easier to put up instead, Peter, but it's up to you. But if everyone has the plan set, that's sheet C8A is what shows the wetland impacts.
do you want to briefly just go into maybe more detail about the stormwater runoff? I see that you have it noted here on C8A. But just in terms of runoff, containment of that runoff and how it is treated.
That is a great question. Sean, you want to answer that? Sean did the stormwater drainage design.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean Toby, the civil engineer for the project. So with the site itself, all the runoff from the road coming into the project goes into closed drainage with catch basins that are offline, deep sump, and then they go into a contact jellyfish filter, which is a self-contained device that provides treatment meeting DES standards. And so that portion of the road, once that's treated, that'll be discharged into the wetland. The remaining portion of the site, everything pretty much from the wetland impact crossing.
Well, you gotta grab the microphone if you leave or don't speak over it. It's all right, just following the rules here. Want everybody to hear you at home.
Okay, so that'll all go into another closed drainage system. It'll be treated. There'll be a large underground storage tank that'll detain the water and slowly release it. And then that ties directly back into the main trunk line that leaves the site. So all of the new development will never even enter the wetlands from the time, the rain hits the ground, treated, and then goes off site as it does now. So it reduces a lot of chance for any contaminants to get into the wetlands in that area.
And then what about specific drainage in and around where those oil tanks are, and any drippings or, I don't even know, leaks from that?
Yep.
Is that in a separate system, or is that just in that tank, which is then sent off-site?
Yeah, so that has an additional method of treatment or containment with it. So anywhere that the tanks are or that a fuel truck would be parked, that's all self-contained. And then that drains into a specific storage tank so that if there ever was a truck or a tank, for some reason, if a truck were to burst open and fuel were to go everywhere, it would go into that containment tank and it could be trapped right there before it got into the system. And then after it goes into that tank and then it's checked to make sure there's no oil in it, It goes through an oil water separator and then back through the same system of drainage on site. So it has a series of safe falls that would prevent it from going into the wetlands.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yep.
Thank you. Jess?
Just to make sure I'm reading the plans correctly, this proposed project, it sits at the 25-foot wetland setback, right? So there's a good chunk of this that's within the 100-foot buffer. Am I understanding the plans correctly?
So these are on the Peace Development Authority property, and as such, these are under the jurisdiction of the Peace Development Authority, not the city's wetland jurisdiction.
Right.
So we have identified the 25-foot wetland buffer as recognized under Peace Development Authority regulations.
Right, but just for my own understanding, that is the edge of a lot of this project, right? Correct, the 25-foot setback?
Sure. Where the road comes across, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
What's the word? De-icing the plants? De-icing?
De-icer?
De-icing?
Yeah.
There's no de-icing planned in this area. We don't store planes in this area.
Says right here, there's a parking for the de-icing.
There
truck.
it goes there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a glycol storage tank, I think, listed.
Yeah, that would be for the tenants to, to gain access to that material, but there's specific areas on the airport that are designated for this project where de-icing can occur. So there will be no de-icing in this project. We've coordinated with PDA, and there are specific areas where that will occur, but not on this site.
Okay, thank you.
And I just had a question. Did you indicate where snow removal would be and how that works on the plans?
Well, I don't think we do. Do we show that?
We do. So I can speak to that. I think on, I think it's sheet C7, we have certain areas where that would be stored.
Oh, it never went to the.
So those snow storage areas are outside of any of the buffers or the wetlands themselves.
It's up here if you want to point to it. Sorry, I didn't have the plan up.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
So up in this area, there's a snow storage, so that'll drain off through the woods, and it's got a series of vegetation it would go into before that gets into any of the wetlands. There's another area kind of down here off the end of the paved apron, and then there's another area kind of up here by the fuel farm that would drain back into the vegetative swale. And those will also be coordinated and reviewed through the AOT process as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, although it is under your P's jurisdiction area, I think echoing what Jessica had said about just being careful along that 25-foot line, and then you go as far as say erosion control measures are to be inspected weekly and after every half inch of rainfall within a 24-hour period. So certainly just during this process and then in the future, knowing that someone is looking after that land because it is so close. Again, I know that it's in your separate jurisdictional area, so it's fine. But again, we just want to make sure that that wetland is cared for during the construction process and then thereafter.
Right, definitely.
Thanks.
And I just had a question. You mentioned the invasive species. You don't know where they are at this point.
Right, the contractor will have to identify those areas and as they can begin construction and prior to construction. And if there are invasive species that are within the development footprint, they will have to address those with an invasive species control plan.
And that's just within the development footprint, not in the 25-foot buffer or in the...
Well, in the areas that would be altered or developed, so yes, if we do have impacts within the 25-foot buffer, that would be addressed, so that would be included.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, that's someone who knows what invasive or native species may look like, not just a general contractor.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You had said the contractor will look at it prior to constructing.
Correct.
hopefully that's someone who knows what a invasive species or native planting may look like.
Yes.
Thank you. Not just the actual person.
What are the two head walls that drain right into the wetlands? There's a head on A, head wall 1 and head wall 3. Looks like they drain right into the wetland.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what that is there's two wetlands there. There's one to the north and then the main one to the south. So two of those head walls, there's a pipe that provides connectivity between the two. Because right now, all the wetlands are kind of in a bowl. They don't drain off anywhere on site. So that's going to allow that northern wetland to drain into the southern one. And then the other head wall is just the discharge of the treated water from the access roadway. And then there is one additional head wall there as well. That's an overflow for the wetland itself. Right now, that's how those wetlands drain. When they fill up, there are head walls there or drop inlets that take the water off site to the closed drainage system I mentioned earlier. So that's just a replacement of the one that's being impacted during the road.
So Hatch Basin 4 and Hatch Basin 3 go into a drain manhole and then into the wetland. Is that correct?
They go into a drain manhole and then a treatment structure, the jellyfish structure that I had mentioned before that treats it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Could you explain that, please?
Yep. Yeah, so it's a large concrete structure. The water goes into it, and it has a series of filters that almost look like jellyfish tentacles, so that's the name of that structure. As the water passes through all those filters, it catches all the pollutants, contaminants, and it's a very, dense filter, so that by the time it's done with it, it's captured all the pollutants to a state standard. So it's state standard clean water coming out of that.
Is that on a regular maintenance and replacement schedule?
Correct, yep. Yep, those are maintained, and within the AOT report, there's a full inspection and maintenance schedule specific to those structures themselves as well.
Okay, thank you.
And why are you connecting the two wetlands?
So as Sean said, they do, if they overfill, there will be flow between the two of them. And so there was concern, we didn't want to block the hydraulic connectivity between those two. So as they're delineated currently, they are separated by a small strip of land that is upland, but the road will elevate it slightly so that we didn't want it to go over the road. So we wanted that connectivity at high flow levels to be able to still remain. So there's not a typical flow. There isn't a drainage channel there. It's just as, during certain storm events, there may be connectivity, and DES would like to see us to not block that connectivity. So we want to make sure, because if they did, then we'd be going over the road, and then there's, introduction of contaminants. It's just much better to have a pipe that goes through there and allows them to equilibrate to what they want to be.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we want to hear from the abutter?
Guess it would technically be open to public.
Yes. Oh, yes, thank you. We'll open it up to public comment. Thank you. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Jake Marvelli with the law firm Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley and Roberts, and I represent Port City Air. I was the author of the letter that was submitted to you yesterday. Largely that spells out our position on this, that Port City Air is a lessee of the PDA, the Peace Development Authority. And generally at Peace, that's how that works. If you're on the base, you're renting or leasing from Peace Development Authority for a significant period of years. One of the buildings that Port City Air leases is Hangar 229, which you'll see is directly abutting the proposed project location. As far as the notice, the abutters notice, my understanding is that's an issue to take up with the DES where the application originated. But to speak to that briefly, Port City Air is a long-term lessee of the directly abutting Hangar 229. Reviewing the wetlands permit application that was submitted, there were some abutter notices provided to other entities other than Pease Development Authority, such as Spyglass Development LLC, which we would understand to also be a tenant like Port City Air. So our issue is that there may be other tenants who were given notice and we were not. We discovered that this application had been filed by happenstance on Sunday evening, and so we're fortunate to have enough notice to come and speak to you today. The proposed project location, as the commission sees, it involves wetlands. It's at Pease Development, or at Pease Tradeport, where there is a history of environmental concern. This project location has generated public interest previously during board application process with the Pease Development Authority. And I enclosed a copy of a letter to the editor that was submitted as part of that process, which demonstrates that people are concerned about what goes or could go into the water in the wetlands in that area. And with the notice we did have, it was too close to this meeting for us to give it a full engineering review. But Port City Air has retained Eric Sari of Altus Engineering to review this if we are given the opportunity to do so, to offer professional comment on what you see. I would note that a member of this commission has noted today that there is a glycol storage tank that's part of this proposal. There are fuel tanks that are part of this proposal. There is a hangar and contemplated aircraft that will be coming into this area as part of the proposal. And those are significant, potentially significant environmental concerns that warrant this commission's scrutiny before you make a final recommendation to DES. And so I thank you for taking my comments, and if the commission has any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
No, just a point of clarity, not for you, but for the commission. Construction and water safety in this project location is an area of public concern. It's definitely of public concern, but it's not a public or conservation commission consideration, because as she has just highlighted, this is in the Pease Development Authority jurisdiction. So much of what you're highlighting, although it may be valid, is not the public's consideration. Am I understanding that correctly?
I don't know. I think any wetland impact is potentially the public's concern.
I guess
I'm not sure on the clarification.
For the scope of how we're reviewing this project.
Yeah, I mean, typically on a state wetland permit application, this is a state, so this isn't the Pease review of the application, this is the state wetland permit application, so it would be based on their requirements. So the setbacks the Pease has is even more than the state. The state would only look at direct wetland impacts in a situation like this.
Yeah. Okay.
But it would be, yeah, from the state wetland application standpoint.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you want to? Yep.
Thank you for letting me provide comment. Again, just to reiterate, the abutters list was generated using the city's tax mapping and online identification of ownership of parcels. That is per DES's requirements, and that is the way that we do all wetland applications with DES. So if an applicant was notified, they are currently listed as the title holder of the parcel. And I would just also add that, as mentioned, we have submitted an alteration of terrain permit to DES. So all of the stormwater review, including any potential use by hangars, de-icing, all of the pavement that is proposed and structures that are proposed are included within the stormwater management plan and treatment and have been appropriately addressed by the alteration of terrain application. And we feel very confident that we have met all of the state requirements to ensure that these wetlands are not harmed in this process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, sorry, based on that? No. Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
Just make sure that the public is here.
Oh, sorry. Is there anybody else from the public here? And not on Zoom? Is that what you were saying?
I just want to make sure you ask that finally. I'll check Zoom, but just to make sure. Nope, no one's raising their hand. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we're looking for a motion.
Is it a recommendation or is it an approval?
It's a recommendation to the New Hampshire DES Wetland Bureau.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to make a recommendation to the State Wetland Bureau for the application of 0 Exeter Street, 31 Exeter Street, 12 Aviation Avenue on behalf of the Pease Aviation Partners, as presented.
Okay, thank you. Seconded on that motion? So I don't think we're going to get a second on the motion.
Okay.
I mean, I'll second it for discussion's sake, I guess.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, I'm probably putting us into cornering us in, but anyway, go ahead. Seconded by Jess for discussion.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, and you might advise me here, Peter, so we would, additional input from professionals and concerns that are raised, do they have to be raised here and then recommended on to state DES? Or at the DES level, can they raise their issues and concerns as well?
I believe they can raise them directly with DES in addition to this venue here.
In addition to this?
Yep, I believe so. They can write a letter to DES and say, you know, we have these specific objections, concerns, in addition to this. This board is advisory to the
Right.
state in the permit process, so we're just one of the recommendations that they can get. Any member of the public can comment on a permit that they see. Yeah.
So I base my ruling on our criteria, definition criteria, is how I see it, is that, you know, as far as his is concerned, that's a different animal. So,
Yeah.
you know, so the criteria and everything is the definition criteria.
Well, Pease has their own criteria out there, and then the state has its own criteria. So there's
Right.
3 different sets of criteria.
Exactly.
And really what DES is looking for is feedback that'll, you know, either help the application be better or stop them from approving the application because of specific concerns that you have, or, you know, and they're gonna ultimately, what I always say to the commission is that you can recommend anything you want to the DES,
Yeah.
and they'll incorporate comments where they can, but they also have to follow their rules. So at the end of the day, they're gonna follow what the state statute and the DES rules say for their permit applications. So sometimes it amounts to getting a bunch of conditions put in, and issues raised that might not have been raised before. So I think that's a beneficial process that they get these recommendations from the commission.
Yeah, so our advantage, if we were to wait and hear from the abutter, would be that we would know what their recommendations are or whatever, that we could pass on, in addition to them passing
Yeah,
on.
and, you know, I think the recommendation to DES doesn't necessarily have to be to approve or deny. I think it could be, hey, these are the considerations we want you to look at when you review this permit. You might get more considerations at your next meeting if people want to come and give them, but they can also give them directly, so.
That was the nature of my recommendation, just for the record, I suppose.
Wait, what?
Claire, yeah, what is it?
The nature of my recommendation was so that we could attach some conditions or stipulations that this board sees fit, so that we can pass it along. And then, again, everyone else can submit their own conditions coming from them as well. Whether it's in the butter, the public, whoever you want to, wherever it comes from.
Yeah, and you could also make it, if you could recommend approval to DES, you could recommend denial to DES, you don't have to recommend either way. Or you could recommend one or the other, and then whether you approve or deny, we think these are important considerations. So, you could add that, or you can, yeah, I guess there's a whole bunch of other things. That's how I see it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. And, so before I vote, I always have a hard time with the P's applications. This one, seems to be, mostly because we don't have the jurisdiction on the buffer, other than your 25 feet that you guys voluntarily came up with a long time ago for some of the wetlands. And I find that makes it just practically impossible to feel like anything's okay in this situation because of the impacts that are going to be impacting the not the buffer, but the wetland, because there is only a 25-foot buffer. So on the fact that there are potential for contamination from the site, potential for impacts to the water quality and the wetland, and there's no effort to kind of talk about restoring or enhancing the wetland at all. I don't know if I can vote in favor of this, so that's kind of where I stand. And as for, I don't know if you want to add anything else to your, I guess I
Love
can't
to.
go back to, yeah, go ahead.
Does anybody else have any other comments
All
that they
right.
would like to chime in on?
Well, I think I would just reiterate what Barbara said. I'm struggling with this application because of the reasons that she mentioned. It just seems very intensive, very close to the wetland, and there's a lot of potential for contamination and essentially issues to arise. So, so at this point, it feels very hard to vote for it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so what would the proper process be? Do I have to rescind my recommendation and then we attach those conditions to it?
Okay. Do you agree? He wants to attach conditions to his,
You can just add,
Add
if you're agreeable to
Great.
conditions.
Yeah, I'm agreeing that it would be nice to see some consideration for the wetland, whether it be additional plantings, additional structures in between the actual development site and the wetland, additional mitigation efforts around the wetland. And improved care and consideration of the existing wetland for future impacts.
so like improved maintenance or best management practices?
Correct.
Okay.
So, are you saying, do you want to add those as stipulations to the motion?
To our recommendation.
Yeah,
So the
recommendation.
as a recommendation?
Yeah.
Yep. And so I'm not going to include anything Barbara or Jess said, just those, if you guys want to add to them in what you said, or if he's agreeable.
If you
with
felt
that.
like I addressed what you said, then great.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah. Did he address what you were getting at?
You okay to-
I feel too close to it right now, so.
It's too close.
On top of it.
Do you want
For
to,
clarification's sake, is this a recommendation for approval or not, or just this is how we feel about this project and that's what we're gonna send to?
I'm looking at it as, you'll have to vote to decide whether you recommend approval or if the motion to approve carries.
Right.
But even if the motion to approve doesn't carry, you can still say, you know, the commission has these following recommendations, because you're not deciding on the permit.
Yeah.
Right,
You're recommending how they decide on the permit.
right.
But even if they decide to go ahead and issue the permit, they'll at least see your recommendations. That's my understanding of how it'll work.
Yeah.
I have a question, just about the 25-foot buffer zone. The state doesn't have a 25-foot buffer zone. The city technically doesn't have it. But Pease has it? And how do they get to skirt, I mean, usually usually there's the minimum, the state would be the minimum, and a city can make it more, and then an association or whatever, you know, they can make it even more. But how does Pease get to make it less legally?
They're not making it less, they're making it more. 25 is more than 0 as a buffer.
But not more than the city.
Right. But it's a separate entity than the city.
But doesn't the
We
state
can talk
have,
about those
the
rules.
state has a 0 wetlands setback?
That's right, unless it's in a tidal or prime wetland.
Okay, sorry for my ignorance on that one. That's disturbing, but okay.
Technically,
question.
Pease is a state-owned authority. So it's owned by the state technically. And the board of, you know, the board runs it on behalf of the state, the board of directors of Pease.
Okay.
So that's why they're exempt from a lot of local regulations. But they have taken stands to comply with regulations relative to inspections standards and building standards and things of that nature. So they're complying with our zoning laws for the most part. But this actually, the wetlands one is one that it's a glaring problem, really.
Yeah.
Because they haven't taken a strong enough stand to protect the wetlands. And maybe that could be approval, and maybe that could be one of our recommendations, that the state review, and we asked the PDA to review the 25-foot setbacks, and we recommend that it be expanded. I don't know, I'm throwing that out
Yeah,
there.
well,
for
just to be
discussion.
clear, that's fine. But to add on to that, the PDA doesn't just have 25, they have 25 or 50. They have a setback based on the wetland itself that they established out there. So they have, oh, and Mike Mates has something he wants to add, I think, if you want to hear it from PDA or if you just want to move forward. It's up to you.
Want to hear it from PDA?
Do you want to hear from PDA? Okay. Mike?
Hi, Peter.
Did you have a?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I just want to give a little bit of background on how the Pease Development Authority wetland buffers were established. We hired Gove Wetland Consultants, Jim Gove, to do an analysis, a function and values analysis of all the wetlands on Pease. And we identified the highest priority wetlands that have the most function and values, and we identified all the way down to the lower valuable wetlands. We then decided we would apply buffers based on those function and values assessments. Some wetlands on Pease got 100-foot buffers, some got 50-foot buffers, some got 25-foot buffers. And in some cases, man-made wetlands don't have any buffers, or if you're less than a quarter acre, you don't have a buffer on your wetland. So we did evaluate all the wetlands on Pease and assign an appropriate buffer to them based on their function and values that was established by Jim Gove. So it wasn't just, you know, haphazard applying a 25-foot buffer here, a 50-foot buffer there. We looked deeply into each site and each wetland before the appropriate buffer was applied.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Mike.
So I think, so you had conditions added to your motion, and just, are you okay with the conditions? You second with the, okay. So, any more questions or discussion before we vote?
I have a technical question. If I second it, do I have to vote to support it?
No.
You don't have to support it, even if you voted to support it.
Okay.
I mean, if you made the motion to support it.
Yeah, you don't have to. Any other questions?
No.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion fails. Thank you.
So 6-0, and we'll put a letter together for Peace Development Authority with that recommendation. I mean, for DES with that recommendation and all these comments that you made.
Okay.
The list of comments that you guys put together. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Fun with the minutes on that one.
Oh, my God. Okay. So,
Do you want your?
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Will you be seeing this application again, or are we complete? We are complete, right? Okay.
yeah.
I think so.
And I gave you
Do you want your thumb drive back?
Yeah.
I better shut the PowerPoint off. There you go, thanks. Take care.
So, our next item is other business.
I don't have any other than this. Oh, do I?
Yeah, you go. You're right. We don't really have an update on, other than we're going to schedule a meeting.
Oh, we
right?
wanted to schedule a meeting to talk about conservation, because I might have an update, but I don't,
We were going
I'm ready to give it right now.
to, okay.
But anybody that's talked to people or given me feedback on the conservation land, but we'll schedule a meeting to talk about our next step with conservation properties.
Okay?
Okay.
And I just have a piece of news. There's a Politico publication called E&E. It's environmental news. And there's an article that came out today, and that publication is online. Check it out. It's on Portsmouth. Yeah.
Okay. What is it called?
E&E. It's a publication of Politico.
Oh, okay.
EMC, like EMC squared, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
E&E.
This, which is some, I can't
Oh,
remember,
it's
something to
E
do
for-
with time and travel or
Yeah,
something.
It stands for like
energy
environment,
and math.
something, you know, but it's a professional news magazine put out by Politico for people that are in government, in environmental affairs, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you. I had one other business that, and Peter, I meant to check with you on this first, but on the 16th, they're doing an all boards, the Coastal Adaptation Work Group is doing an all boards climate forward presentation. It's at 8:30 to 10 in the morning. I'm going to see if they're recording it. Do they usually record it and make it available?
They usually do.
They usually do, yeah.
So.
What was it? Sorry.
It's the Coastal Adaptation Work Group, and it's called All Boards Climate Forward. So I think it's, I mean, you know, Peter, right?
I don't know much about it, unfortunately, that this, I haven't been following it as closely.
So several,
Who's putting it on?
the
Coastal Adaptation Work Group.
Paul.
Uh,
And I just know that they have resources to help communities kind of collaborate with all the boards within that community to move forward on climate change. I think it's mitigation and adaptation things, and they have a few that have done that, so they're,
I think they're highlighting specific projects, probably, but
Yeah.
I don't know the details. I should
in
have
the coastal
looked at it more.
area. So I will send out
So
the
it's
invite,
December 16th at 8:30,
8:30 to 10, and I'll send it to,
and it's a Zoom meeting probably, right?
yep, Isaac.
That's good. I'm gonna be
Make sure.
in North Carolina myself, so.
But I was thinking with the new city council and all the talk about regulations, that this is a good time for us to kind of get our act together and figure out what we want to be seeing in the future, right?
Great,
So this
yeah,
might be a good
yeah.
resource.
No,
to
it'd be a
help.
great resource. They're a great resource, and probably be really helpful.
So you'll send us an invite or a link or something so we can
Yeah.
try to connect to it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will send it.
Thank you.
That's up to him. Thank you very much, everybody. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Is there a way that we can